welcome back to KDIS Alumni Interview session. Today, we'll be having a chat with our recently graduated alumni, Archita Fitrian from Indonesia. So, Archita is already here with us. How are you, Archita, today?
Hello, Kartika. I'm really good today, especially because it's weekend. I feel good and great at this time.
That's very nice to hear. Weekend is always good for everyone. So, Archita, we were going to start our interview session today. And first of all, could you briefly introduce yourself, including what was your major in KDI School and what was your past and present occupation?
Okay, I was majoring development policy back in KDI School. And before I pursuing a master's at KDI School, I was working as a research assistant in the private public policy institute in Indonesia. And currently, I work at UNESCO APCEIU Seoul, South Korea, as a contract-based staff assistant program specialist.
Okay, so you mentioned that you were majored in MDP program in KDI School. Could you tell us what makes you decide to apply to KDI School at that time, and what was your concentration at MDP program?
I'm really interested to know more about development policy, and my program concentration is sustainable development, and how I'm really interested on how we can develop our country, in this case, not only in terms of economic growth, but how to make development become sustainable. And we see climate change's effect around the world, like heat wave, floods. For me, it's really important to know how the countries promote the kind of development that minimize environmental problems. So by pursuing MDP program at KDI School, I learned various topics of the process of development and other countries' development experience, and also future sustainable development goals. And I'm also interested to learn more about development policy, in particular about Asia Pacific region. Moreover, I'll learn about economic development of Korea at my undergraduate studies, and I also work as assistant in the field of development policy back in Indonesia. And my interest to pursue master degree on development policy was growing a lot at that time. And I found that KDI School is one of the best schools to study about development policy, and KDI is the leading think tank of Korea's development policy. That's why at the time I decided to apply at KDI School.
Could you tell us the most memorable course, projects, or event in KDI School?
So thanks to Korean government scholarships, I had a chance to study and live in KDI dormitory for 2 years. And I had beautiful memories during my time in KDI School. Even though I enjoyed most of my time in KDI School, I remember one of the most exciting memory that is joining Song and Dance Festival and KDIS Fashion Runway with my friend in around December 2021. And I and my friend at the time performed Balinese traditional dance, and it was my first time to perform traditional dance in front of students around the world, and also show my traditional costumes. And I was really happy to show one of the Indonesia's cultures, and excited to see my friends from other countries also, such as their performance and their fashion runway. It was the most memorable event in KDI School during my 2 years in KDI School.
Could you tell us how your education experience at KDI School helped you to get into your current position now, which is working at the UNESCO APCEIU?
Yeah, my education experience in KDI School has led me to understand more about UN Sustainable Development Goals, environmental crises, and especially the process of development through education. Also, I remember I took class, like I mentioned before, Introduction of Development Policy on my first master's. In that class, I learned about Korean economic development and how the education played an important role in Korea's development experience. At the time, my interest to work at one of the UN institute and work on sustainable development goals has started. And my education background on development policy helped me to get into UNESCO Asia Pacific Center for International Understanding, which is focused more on education and development itself.
Oh, that's such a great explanation. I do understand now how KDI has helped you and to get into your current position now. Could you explain more about UNESCO APCEIU, what kind of organization it is, and especially what kind of your department that you are working now, and what is your responsibility at work?
Okay, thank you for the question. So UNESCO APCEIU is UNESCO Category 2 centers in education sectors. It was established between agreement of Korean government and UNESCO headquarters in Paris. So I currently work at Office of Education and Training, and my motivation to work in UNESCO APCEIU is I want to have experience working in international educations in the field of education itself. And my main responsibility at work is managing online workshops on global citizenship education, or we can call it GSET, through GSET online campus for educators around the world. And as I mentioned earlier, is education is fundamental aspect in the development process. So by working in APCEIU as a staff that in charge of managing workshops for educators, I get to know various educators from around the world, and they shared about their obstacles to educate students in their countries and how they educate their children, their students, and also the government policy toward educations in various countries.
So with your current working experience at UNESCO APCEIU, is there anything such as policy or programs that you wish you could bring and implement in your home country in Indonesia?
I wish I can contribute to Indonesian development process in the futures, such as like not only about the environmental policy, but I wish that I can contribute on how to develop Indonesia education system.
As a person from Indonesia itself, I do hope that we could also implement that somehow. And I believe there are many people who already know what is Indonesia and what kind of country it is. So, but I believe there are some people who doesn't know well as well. So could you please tell us about Indonesia, what kind of country it is, and including your hometown, which I heard is Bali?
Yeah, Indonesia is a really big country, and with a huge number of populations, we have around 17,000 islands, and we are really heterogeneous society with rich of cultures and traditions. So if you go to other in Indonesia, you can find that the culture is really different and traditions also really different. For example, I came from Bali, that the majority in Bali are Hindus, and meanwhile Indonesia, the majority in Indonesia are Muslims. So when I go to Bali, there are so many like traditions, which is really different when I go to other part of Indonesia. I could say that it's a big country with so many traditions, rich of cultures, and many delicious foods.
I do agree on everything you said. As an Indonesian, I'm gonna promote to people, everyone here, please come to Indonesia. Okay, this is the last question for today's session. So, Archita, do you have any final words or advice to current and prospective students in KDI School who want to follow similar path with you?
Yeah, I do recommend them to learn Korean if they want to work in Korea, because if they talk with their colleague, of course, they would prefer it in Korean, because if we talk different language, like it will make us feel the gap, even though they are okay with that. But I feel like I'm better to speak Korean with my colleagues. So I think the basic thing is the language. You have to learn the language.
Okay, Archita, thank you very much for all your words and advice today. I do believe whatever you're saying right now is gonna be very useful for our fellow friends who wants to follow similar path with you, and also who wants to look for job opportunities as well, including myself. Okay, so that wraps up our interview session today. Thank you very much, Archita, for coming with us today, and it's so glad to have you back to KDI School now. And see you around in next change.
Thank you very much for having me today. It's really pleasure time also to share with you, and back to KDI School.